Welcome to the Power Up live stage presented by Wardzilla Energy Storage and Optimization. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you are here. My name is John Leapart with Adaptive Construction Solutions, or ACS. On the panel this afternoon, we also have Eric Grant with Blue Ridge Power. We have Eric Budakaz with Solve Energy. We have Michael Mulleron with Aerotech. And we also have Nick Morgan with ACS as well. And so let's start out by, Nick, if you would, please give us a little bit of background on ACS, if you will.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about apprenticeships, especially as it pertains to delivering them on projects that are subject to the Inflation Reduction Act. ACS, we started in 2016, centrally focused on apprenticeships, initially to bring veterans into the construction industry, and that became the tip of our spear. And now we operate apprenticeships across 20 occupations in different industry sectors since the Inflation Reduction Act, largely focused on clean energy across maybe 6 or 7 occupations. And at ACS, a key part is that we act as the sponsor of the Registered Apprenticeship Program. And as the sponsor, we're able to then bring on signatory employers like Blue Ridge, Aerotech, and Solve, and many others across the industry in order to deliver the registered apprenticeship and take that, the heavy lifting of an apprenticeship off of them so they could focus on their business. And so as ACS grew, we brought on large EPCs, small specialty contractors, and everyone in between. And with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, we realized that there was really a need for project delivery of the apprenticeship requirements, where as the sponsor, we can provide a solution for everybody on the job site, not just the EPC or any single contractor, but to act as that sponsor for every subcontractor willing to adhere to the requirements of managing an apprenticeship program. And you know, one key piece of that is recognizing that the prevailing wage requirements are so interlinked into apprenticeship. And so for that reason, our teams continue to expand. And now we sit today with, I think, 92, 93 workforce development and compliance professionals at ACS that manages apprenticeship programs for a lot of y'all in the audience today. John, you know, as we deliver apprenticeships and use that kind of that project-wide strategy on sites, you want to go into, as the Director of Project Management at ACS, specifically cover kind of what ACS does to help our partners in implementing quality apprenticeship programs.
Yes, Nick. So there are a few different ways that we are able to achieve that. So number one, when you talk about journey workers, we're able to complete that process of designating journey workers for our contractors and subcontractors. You know, one of the things that can be a little, I guess, stressful, if you will, for some of our contractors is going through that process, but they don't have to do that. We'll take care of that process for them in designating those journey workers, which is important to make sure that they meet those ratio requirements on those IRA projects. So that's one of the ways that we do that. And then again, of course, and Nick alluded to it, is delivering the apprenticeship program, and we act as a sponsor, right? And so we're able to do that as well. We're able to provide delivery of related instruction. And so as part of that apprenticeship program, there is a requirement that not only is the on-the-job learning piece where they're out in the field and they're doing the job, but there is that piece in the classroom where it's either live virtual training or in-person training where we have instructors that are right there on site providing that instruction for them in a learning environment, right? And so we do that as well, along with identifying opportunities where we can bring those contractors or subcontractors along as signatory employers, where they have an agreement with us where they can be part of our apprenticeship program. And they get signed on with us, and we help them to meet that apprenticeship requirement on these IRA projects. And so on many of our projects that we have on-site coordinators or on-site personnel right there at the job site to help support in making sure that we meet those requirements and to deliver those services right there on site with or for our customers, with our partners. And so those are some of the ways that we deliver those services. So I kind of want to ask now, I want to bring Eric Grant with Blue Ridge Power and just kind of ask Eric, why Blue Ridge Power partners with ACS?
Thanks, John, and thanks ACS for this opportunity and for providing such knowledge and information for us as a partner of yours. And I'll say that why ACS for us is really two reasons. One is from a practical standpoint. We need to be compliant on projects. We are utility scale EPC, and we are building 100 megawatt projects in lots of different states at the same time. So getting up to speed with all the IRA compliance independently would have been quite a challenge. And so we are using what John just talked about, using that support on site. And so that's obviously a big part of why. But the other part of why ACS for us is a kind of a mission standpoint in that I was hired to develop apprenticeships and mentorships at Blue Ridge Power before the Inflation Reduction Act was even something in people's minds. That wasn't the reason that we were brought in. I was brought in to start apprenticeships. I was brought in because we wanted to bring young people and give them an opportunity to grow up in an industry that was just about to take off. And so, in fact, our registered apprenticeship was registered the day that the Inflation Reduction Act was signed. And so that indicates that we've been working on that for a year and a half. So we were bought into the concept of apprenticeships, and we found that in ACS, and we find consistently in ACS a partner that is really about the employee, the apprentice, and giving that apprentice an opportunity to not only get in at the ground level of something, but then to see their path and opportunity to grow in that. So we feel like we have found a vision partner in ACS, as well as a very practical, supportive partner of Blue Ridge Power.
Absolutely, and we do appreciate that partnership, Eric. Now, Eric Budakaz with Solve. How does Solve benefit from the partnership from your company's perspective?
So at a project level, it's important to Solve Energy to support the clients. You know, they're the ones paying for the projects ultimately, right? But we also have partners and we have subcontractors, and this whole IRA thing, it's new for everybody. If you're a small sub, a 17th level tiered sub, there's a lot to learn, and it can be daunting, and you certainly want to be compliant. And of course the project developers, they lie awake at night worrying about making sure everything is compliant, and how do we achieve that? So part of what Solve wants to do is make sure that our clients can rest assured and feel comfortable in knowing that we've partnered up with ACS, and we've got that covered. We've got the compliance, we've got the understanding, because ACS gets us there. And with our subcontractors, they have questions, and ACS is there to support them as well. And we know we have that backstop. We know we have something we can kick off against and push our subs and our partners and our providers, and let our clients, frankly, sleep at night.
Awesome. One of the things that I failed to mention as it relates to the apprenticeship piece is the support that we provide to our customers in enrolling the apprentices, because that in and of itself is a process, and we kind of help to shoulder that. And we, again, appreciate your partnership as well, Eric. Michael, I kind of wanted to ask you, how does Aerotech partner with ACS?
Sure. Aerotech strives to be the industry leader when it comes to renewable energy staffing. Over the years, we're approaching 10 gigawatts of utility scale solar staffed across the country. So when IRA guidance came out, we recognized there was a large opportunity, and we wanted to be extremely proactive in our approach to assure that we had a solution for our customers. We work with a lot of the largest EPCs in the United States, and we do have a long-standing history of working within government contracting. So we had a back office that was very, very capable of handling prevailing wage work and certified payroll, but we recognized that we didn't have the expertise we needed in the apprentice space. So we were introduced to Nick and the ACS team. We saw it as a great opportunity to partner with somebody with industry-leading expertise, and that partnership has allowed us to become a signatory employer within their apprenticeship program and has allowed us to deliver that solution for our customers. To date, we've done going on 10 IRA projects. We have 200 plus apprentices on staff, and we're getting a lot of great feedback about the administration and reporting that we're providing owners and EPCs alike.
Well, you know, and I like to always focus on, at the foundation, the most important part of an apprenticeship program is those partnerships with employers. An apprenticeship program they can't complete an apprentice without an employer. That's who's making the biggest investment. They're giving somebody a job. They're giving them a sustainable career pathway that provides incremental pay increases as they grow in skills, right? In the Army, you know, we always thought about the fact we knew exactly what we had to do to get promoted. If I accomplish X, Y, and Z, I'm there. And an apprenticeship program does the same thing. And so for us, we're always after, at the very core, when we're picking a partner, is our apprentices going to complete the apprenticeship? And, you know, usually when we think about staffing, that's going to be one of the first things that we're going to question. But really, as we look through the numbers of the past year, our highest retention in the apprenticeship program has been with Aerotech. And so that is really key in us, like, as we continue to scale the business, is making sure, are we still getting quality results with our apprentices? And I think that's really important for everyone to remember, you know, that at the end of the program, do apprentices have a career? And I think that's one thing that the industry's had a challenge with, is keeping people in the industry sector. And, you know, I think having committed partners like Blue Ridge and Solve and Aerotech and others focused on what that journey is for the apprentice is really key. You know, and I think that's a big contributing factor to where we sit. When IRA was passed, you know, we had already had a number of years of work with Bechtel, had done quite a few projects with McCarthy building companies, with Light Source BP, and fantastic results. And specifically, the year before the Inflation Reduction Act had passed, we had put about 150 veterans into the industry on 3 projects for Bechtel and McCarthy. And, you know, a third of those individuals that were veterans had just recently transitioned out of the military, but they were also met the federal definition of homelessness. These are veterans who, they didn't think they're homeless. They're sleeping in their car, showering at the gym, and they just didn't realize that, you know, they needed something more stable. But really, this industry is perfect for those individuals because it lets them get to work. They're going to get those hours they need to get back on strong financial footing and ultimately be provided a longer pathway. ACS, we like to open those doors. We like to facilitate. We like to leverage different government programs, but it doesn't go anywhere without great employers like these 3. That is absolutely critical. So we find ourselves now, we got 8.6 gigawatts of projects that ACS is supporting. On some of these projects, we do the whole ball of wax, right? We act as a sponsor. We're even doing some work on the prevailing wage and doing a lot of reporting. And then some projects, we're just assisting in the delivery of the apprenticeship. Maybe it's the EPC's program, and we're managing their program on their behalf. But one thing has really, the last 6 months, our partners have been just bringing up is, hey, Nick, I see you've got this, ACS has got this great group of EPCs and contractors. Are you going to be there for us in 2025? As we go from 4 IRA projects to 20. And that's been on our mind. Paul Champion, our COO, couldn't be here today, but we've been at the leadership side of the business really focused on the scalability of ACS. because when we partner and you're our signatory employer, one thing's for sure is we got to meet our obligations. If you need to go somewhere, we got to be prepared to go with you to that state to operate apprenticeships, and that could be tricky with different regulations and different state apprenticeship agencies and their requirements. But it was also our team. So, I mentioned that we have 91, 92 team members. John manages a large segment of those individuals. But what was really exciting was over the last 6 months, we've been really focused on making what's now, we bounced this off some back channels at Department of Labor to make sure we had it right. But what is now the largest investment in U.S. history to expand apprenticeship infrastructure. When you think about public investment, there's always been money to support the growth of apprenticeships. The last 3 administrations have been big advocates of apprenticeship. We know however the election turns out, it's going to be the same. And so for that reason, we decided to put our money where our mouth was in expanding apprenticeships. And at this RE Plus, we're really excited to announce that ACS has made a $10 million investment and launching the Apprenticeship Innovation Center in Houston, Texas, in the Energy Corridor, a 68,000 square foot facility centrally established to support businesses on expanding apprenticeships. So we could not do this without our partners. So I want to give everyone here a round of applause in helping us. People ask me all the time, why apprenticeships, Nick? You weren't an apprentice. I was in the Army. I got out after I was wounded in Iraq, started a commercial insurance agency, and felt like I needed to do more for veterans and others. And then we went on to have 7 kids, my wife and I. And people say, why apprenticeships? I was like, I just told you I have 7 kids, right? So what better than an apprenticeship for some of them, and I would be so proud to see it. But making a decision, this was private money, this was our money at ACS. We've never made $10 million, so it was a big leap for us. Why would we do that? We would do it because of the commitment of our partners. Yes, there's a lot of folks in this building who are going to do apprenticeships because they have to. There's companies that are doing apprenticeship because it was who they were from the very beginning. And now it's just put a level playing field for everyone that whether it's Blue Ridge, Solve, or Aerotech, as they invest in apprenticeships, they realize everyone else has got to do it too. So it makes it a little easier to make those decisions. So, I want to go back to Eric. I know a lot of people might get jealous when I say this. I know the other Eric with Saul Budakas was a bit envious when I said that Eric Grant had toured our facility. He's the only, we had a Texas senator, I won't say which one, that did a tour, but other than him, Eric has been the only person who's peeked behind the curtain to see what this facility is going to do, and I'll talk about when it will open. But Eric, why don't you talk about the building a little bit, what you experience and what you see the Apprenticeship Innovation Center being able to help Blue Ridge and your subs.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. One of the things we've loved working with Nick is that Nick is an information sharer. He's passionate about apprenticeships and passionate about sharing that information, and he's a wealth of knowledge. And I myself was a career educator before coming into solar. And so what I saw in the Innovation Center, the Apprenticeship Innovation Center, is a space for people to come together to work, obviously, to learn, and we're talking about apprentices, we're talking about industry partners to come to learn, a place for people to collaborate. There's open spaces for people to get together to work together. There's small offices for people to go and have a private meeting or a phone call. There is a large warehouse space that will be converted into a training facility. And so it's really an opportunity for people to come together to work, to learn, to collaborate with each other, and to move their apprenticeships forward collectively rather than working in isolation. That's another thing I'll say about having been a former educator. We know that when people work in silos, a lot gets lost. We know that when you bring people together, a lot gets gained. And so I see this as a place, beautiful facility. It's got amazing grounds. I mean, there's like a walking track, and there's a exercise facility outside. It's really stunning. But what I see it from us is a space for us to come, work with others, innovate, collaborate, learn, and work together. So we're excited to see this launch and be a part of that launch. So, and thank you for the opportunity. It was a little bit of luck. I was on a panel with Clean Techs, and Nick was on the panel with me. So I spent a day working with them and got that tour. And yeah, it was really an opportunity, an honor to be in that spot. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, Eric. And I mean, you really covered the real meaning of the project. We're launching this summer the Global Apprenticeship Network. It's a product of our work with the International Labor Organization. 3 of us at ACS represented employers for the United States at the International Labor Conference in 2023. And the ILO and the IOE, they passed 184 countries voted for the set of recommendations on quality apprenticeships. It's the first global framework for quality delivery. There was 4 people from the United States. There was an individual from Walmart that's a member of the USCIB, which we're now part of as well, and then 3 of us at ACS. And it was just such an honor to represent employers and on a global framework. And we were able to, one of the amendments that we added to it was a global focus on clean energy apprenticeships. It was the only industry sector that was specified in. And so we want to use the Innovation Center as a way for knowledge transfer. We always believe that the well runs deep at ACS, that we don't take information as being some intellectual property. We like to share everything we know. I can't remember the last time I ever elbowed somebody and says, oh, don't tell them that yet, right? Because we know the information is just continuing to be or the knowledge is being an incubator at ACS, and it grows. So one of the things I know Eric has been excited about is professional development. Solve and other organizations, while they partner with ACS and want to continue, I hope, for decades to come, we do realize that they're going to take on more and more of the responsibility of delivery. And so we will be launching the apprenticeship for apprenticeship professionals out of the Apprenticeship Innovation Center. Eric, you want to talk how Solve looks to benefit from this 68,000 square foot facility?
Yeah, it's I like to think of it a little bit as kind of a home away from home for us. Solve is based in San Diego. Most of the folks in my group, we work from home, so we're around the country. And it's kind of neat to have, call it a satellite office, if you will, but it feels like a home away from home to me, is how I'm envisioning it. And ultimately, what I like to be able to show to again, our partners, and I know I mentioned our clients before, but what I like to be able to show to them is that internally as well as externally, we continue to develop our skills and our knowledge and our understanding of apprenticeship and our interpretation of the IRA, and how can we push this forward. And ACS is that other partner that we can look out to and say, we've got this other set of eyes on this, and now we can go down to Houston, and this is our satellite office, if you will, and we're continuing to educate our people so that we are better. As you mentioned, we'll in-source more and more over time, but how do we do that? We do that through education, and ACS is that source of that education. That's most of the stuff I learned. I've learned directly from you. So that's how we advance as an organization, and that's how we pull our clients and our subs and our partners with us.
Well, I wish I could take credit for everything that the team is bringing me. There's a lot of ACS members in the audience, and they got some great materials to hand out, both on our services as well as how the Innovation Center will be used. We're going to be, the grand opening will be for National Apprenticeship Week. It'll be I believe it's the 19th and 20th of November, and we will be hosting probably 200 or 300 members of the industry. It will also be the big kickoff for the Global Apprenticeship Network. I always use that particular week for my own reflection. It was by coincidence. There's a organization, Covenant House of Texas. I always do a sleep out where I'm homeless the same week as National Apprenticeship Week with other business executives. So I will be encouraging everybody who stays to raise money for the Covenant House. I almost had Eric 2 years ago and Lee last year doing it, but I think we've raised about $100,000 over the last several years being homeless for one night. Because, I mean, ultimately, apprenticeships are the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you came from, where your background was, who your parents were, or how many careers you've already had. When you come through an apprenticeship, I mean, you're just going to get all that support and that growth. And people will also ask, you know, why apprenticeships? And for me, when I left the military after leading, you know, 18 men and women in combat, I lost one of my soldiers to suicide in 2013. And she had also grown up in the foster care system and been abused, unfortunately. And so when we work with organizations like the Covenant House, recognizing we're trying to open doors to give somebody a clear pathway and the support along the way. And I think about those who struggle, whether it's with mental health or just landing a career and having stability and keep their family together. I mean, I don't know how often apprentices come back to our office, and I get a knock on the door, and I come out right after a meeting, and we run into there's one of our apprentices that it's been 2, 3, 4 years. And it reminds us why we do what we do. So before I wrap it up, I want to turn it back to Michael about the future for Aerotech as you know, they're looking to work with more partners. Just in 60 seconds, when you think about full solutions on a project by partnering with ACS, what's one of the things that you normally share with project owners or for EPCs on the differentiator of how Aerotech, by partnering with ACS, than just rolling the dice to see if it's going to work?
Yeah, as the industry grows, the demand for skilled and unskilled labor continues to grow, and there's a large skills gap. So one of Aerotech's initiatives is upskilling our workforce, and that aligns directly with the work that ACS is doing through apprenticeships. So we look to be problem solvers, solution providers, and through our partnership with ACS and the utilization of our signatory apprenticeship program, we feel we're able to accomplish that goal of upskilling our workforce, providing solutions for our clients, and ultimately helping them get the people they need when they need them.
So in the last 30 seconds to John, you know, we have 1,000 apprentices plus or minus. We got another 1,000 that we manage from other programs. We're trying to grow that number to 4,000 next year. The Apprenticeship Innovation Center, how is that going to help us accomplish that mission as it pertains to all the great people that work for ACS that are here today?
Well, I think for us, what that Innovation Center is going to do is going to, and some of them already alluded to it, is going to allow us an opportunity to have really a hub, if you will, of where we can provide training for those apprentices that are currently in the program. It'll provide an opportunity for our partners to come together for things like National Apprenticeship Week, to talk through some of the challenges that maybe they are having as it relates to some of their projects, et cetera. But it gives a place for everybody to come together and kind of talk about growth, right? Growth in the apprenticeship space, you know, growth on their projects, et cetera. So I'm excited about it.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. We do have happy hour, courtesy of Aerotech. Our booth number is, somebody yell it out. We'll point everyone in the direction.
It is.
It starts in 5 minutes, so I hope you all are able to join us.
It is E17038.
There you go. All right. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to talking to each of you.
Welcome, everybody, to the PowerUp Live stage presented by Wärtsilä Energy Storage and Optimization. My name is Jared Leader. I'm the Senior Director of Resilience at SEPA, Smart Electric Power Alliance. You might have seen our logo around. We're the co-host of this event along with SIA, and I'm very excited about this panel discussion podcast that we have. Old friends, new. We're competing with happy hour, which is tough, but as you put it,
the conversation will be intoxicating.
there we are. But today, this afternoon, we're going to be talking about GIS mapping and specifically how we can use mapping tools to help investments both on the grid and for communities. And a lot of what we've been learning on the show floor has been great technology and renewable energy in different parts of the grid for different communities, but we're going to focus in on how data can drive those conversations and specifically how geospatial information systems like GIS can drive those situations. So we've got a great group. I'm going to start with you, Mish. Mish, I know Mish from DC. He has a great startup called Rhizome. He'll tell you all about it. They're using AI and data-driven solutions for resilience planning with utilities. Alaric is with PNM. Alaric runs PNM's customer programs, renewable programs, EVs, community solar. Great guy and a tremendous source of information from the utility perspective. And Rebecca's with the North Carolina Clean Tech Center, based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and is a policy analyst. And Rebecca and I have had the pleasure of working together on a couple DOE grants, and specifically in North Carolina, and how we can leverage data from utilities, data from communities, and use that in everyone's best interest to figure out where we should site solar, where we should site storage, and all of that good stuff. So, Mish, I want to start with you. Beyond that introduction, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Rhizome, and how you all are utilizing GIS data and mapping to help utilities plan for the future?
Yeah, thanks, Jared. First thing I want to say is I come from the distributed solar world. The first company that I started was a solar company, and so being here is really important to me, and making sure that as we're working with utilities to help increase the resilience of the grid, that some of these technologies, solar and increasingly storage, and other types of grid modernizing devices are being leveraged as ways to increase the resilience of the grid. So what we do at Rhizome is we're really trying to identify what are the vulnerabilities of the grid for the distribution utilities. And we do a lot of extreme weather modeling, and extreme weather modeling impact on the grid as that is a large source of vulnerabilities for utilities, and they've never had insight into that type of data before. And so we generate forward-looking risk profiles at a pretty high resolution on a utilities distribution system, getting down to a circuit and even section-by-section basis on what the forward-looking risk curves look like related to extreme weather risks like storms, wildfires, extreme temperatures, so on and so forth. And then what are the various solutions like undergrounding? Things are more system hardening by nature. When we started deploying reclosers and other types of switches to sectionalize the grid and make it self-healing. And again, increasingly, utilities are asking us to evaluate the resilience value of distributed devices like storage, primarily as a way to create backup power and reduce economic losses from power interruptions, as well as other types of distributed energy resources like energy efficiency, like thermostats and demand response, that really can help reduce those peaks during the extreme heat days, right? And so resilience during extreme heat is very important for future system planning. And there are all sorts of solutions, both on the system as well as behind the meter with a customer, that can really come into play here. And so we do the math behind what's the long-term cost benefit of any of these types of interventions, and which intervention path on a system-wide basis actually makes the most sense.
I know trying to work with utility data can be difficult sometimes. There's privacy concerns, there's security concerns. It seems like you might have cracked some sort of nut with working with them. What would be your piece of advice, or from your experience, how have those conversations gone?
I mean, I think it starts with, first on the technology side, right? machine learning and artificial intelligence have really gained steam over the last 5 years in the actual computational power given existing data sets, and then even the ability to create synthetic data sets within the utility ecosystem, which utilities are.
What would be a synthetic? What would be a synthetic data set?
Yeah, absolutely. So oftentimes when we work with utilities, there tend to be, say, gaps in their asset data. Usually when a utility grows as a company, they're acquiring different operating companies. And when you do those acquisitions, some data is lost in the process as the utilities have been digitizing. And if you have gaps in, say, the age of a pole, well, that's a major challenge to work around if you're figuring out how vulnerable is this pole to failure. So you can actually use heuristics and Gen AI even to actually be able to see, well, what is the condition of poles in this type of location on the grid, and where have we seen this type of orientation in other parts of the grid, and can actually fill those data gaps that we've actually seen. So that's just the start. Is the advancement in technology is making modeling a whole lot easier, and utilities, to their credit, have done a really good job of digitizing over the last 10, 15 years. So we have a lot of usable data that we can use, and even though there are gaps and there are going to be challenges and we have to clean it, it's still very useful information when we think about the future planning of the system.
Okay, that's helpful. I'm going to come back to you and ask about some specific projects, but Alaric, I want to go to you next. And I know that PNM is working on a lot of different really cool initiatives, EV, community solar, in addition to just your traditional grid investments. Can you talk a little bit about what your role is with PNM and the latest map that you saw that helped you do your job?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me, and thank you all for coming. My name is Alaric Babe. I oversee what we call our Customer Energy Solutions team at PNM. So it's a big umbrella, but it includes our energy efficiency team, our transportation electrification team, voluntary renewable energies, community solar, new program design, and marketing. So that's a long laundry list of things. But at the end of the day, really what we're helping do is how our customers can meet their energy goals by providing them solutions. So whatever they want to do, we want to have a program to help them achieve that. As far as mapping goes, I'll really focus on the EVs side for now because, one, it's one of the sort of sexiest topics in energy, I think, that a lot of people are talking about. And it's also very controllable and also unknown. So it sort of has that perfect trifecta for a mapping project. I will preface this with saying I am not a mapping specialist. I really work on I am an engineer, but I work on the customer side of things and program design.
Hey, maps are maps. You know, you got different layers. You got, you know.
Yeah, maps are exciting though, right? They were the original sort of spy technology, where if you had a good map, you could really attack a problem, and that's really what we're trying to do here today.
Can I? You said the trifecta for you in terms of like an interesting case study was EVs as controllable, unknown,
unknown. So yeah, they're interesting. I think I used the term. It's a sexy energy technology.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't use
that's
that
fine.
as an official term.
Yeah. Okay. But controllable but also unknown.
But also unknown.
It could be. It's a considerable risk if not known, but a considerable benefit if it is something that you can manage and control. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think. And when I say unknown, it's because we just don't have perfect data. I think to Misha's point, I don't know where every EV is. And so what we were working on with mapping was we have something at PNM called the PNM EV Community, which is a hand raiser campaign that we're running. So customers that are either interested in EVs or might already have EVs can let us know. They can sign up for free. We give them special newsletters. They sort of get previews of new programs coming out. But what that helps us on is, okay, we start to identify where pockets of either already EV drivers are or possibly interested customers are. Then I worked with our mapping team and we made some assumptions about how far along the electrification journey these customers are and started to populate a map. We then filled in that data with people that are already participating in our programs. So we have some interested customers and then we have already engaged customers. We can overlay those on our map and there we start to see trends. So I'm not saying that I know exactly where every EV is, But as we do know, EV adoption is asymmetrical. So I think of like the cul-de-sac where one person gets the EV, and then you start to see their neighbors get the EV. It's very similar to what we saw in rooftop solar in the early days. And so then we can start to build out forecasting maps and knowing, okay, well, let's start with our distribution system upgrades in these pockets, or maybe here's where we need to be focusing our efforts. And on the other side, the controllable aspect, I can start to target marketing. So we're about to launch a managed charging program. If I see that there's going to be constraints in an area, we can do zip code targeted marketing to those customers.
You've mentioned constraints, and Mish, you talked a little bit earlier about utility-specific circuit-level data. When we worked together in DC, the DC Public Service Commission Modernization Stakeholder Working Group, there were three. I remember there was an expert that came on talking about mapping and talking about data, and there were three different categories of data that were brought up. I think it was customer level and system level, and then the third was anonymized and aggregated customer data. But we're kind of in this conversation already. We've already kind of merged the two, and I just wanted to distinguish them separately. When you're talking about constraints on the system, we're talking about system level data.
Correct. Yeah, I would say that system level data. I think you could look at, that's typically what I'm referring to.
And when you're talking about like the customers and who's participating and who's interested, that's the customer level data.
Right.
And do those two data sets live in the same group within the utility, or is that something?
That's a good question. I think there's definitely overlap. And one of the fun things about my role is I do live on both sides of the fence, right? I'm very much in a customer-facing role, but I interact daily with our engineering departments and with our planning departments, and it's managing those two things and also understanding, and I'm an engineer myself, so I'm not disparaging engineers, but engineers love certainties, and I'm dealing with very fuzzy data, and so trying to say, okay, well, here are the assumptions I've made, can we do something with it? And so I think it's something that we're learning, and it's something that we're trying to get better at.
I think that's a nice thing about mapping data. You can have census tract and block groups that can look at a community, and that's more demographic, that's more people-driven, social vulnerabilities, but then also getting down to the line, getting down to the customer level. I haven't forgotten about that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Rebecca, why don't you just start off with telling, just sharing a little bit more about what you all are doing at the Clean Tech Center in North Carolina, and how, I know we're not necessarily there with the data. We haven't gotten all the data.
We're getting really close.
Yeah. But what are you most excited about with the project in North Carolina? And share a little bit about the project itself.
Yeah, so first, hi, my name is Rebecca De La Mora. I am a policy analyst at the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. We are a public service center out of North Carolina State University, and we do public education outreach related to clean energy in North Carolina, but also nationwide. So the center itself, we cover a lot of ground. We have a team dedicated to clean transportation and electric vehicles. We have a team dedicated to engineering and technical assistance. We have a team dedicated to training and workforce development. And we have my team, which is dedicated to policy and markets. And so fundamentally what we do on the policy team is track legislation and regulation related to clean energy across the US. We run under the home of the database of state incentives for renewables and efficiency, aka DESIRE, which is a free online database that provides information on all the policies and programs related to clean energy you could possibly think of, all for you to find on the internet. And so,
great resource.
You guys really should check it out. But the project we're working on with Jared and SEPA is a Federal Department of Energy funded project focused on resiliency and renewable-based microgrids at the community level. And so it's called Resilient Renewable Energy to Diminish Disaster Impacts, REDDI, READY, so Resilient Ready Communities. And at the end point of what we want to do with this project is develop a playbook so that communities and local emergency managers and local government can kind of figure out what are their problems when it comes to resiliency and outages, and what are the solutions to those problems, and then how can they actually implement those solutions. And we're kind of coming at a two-pronged approach. The first prong is technical assistance with local communities to kind of get that real-world application before developing our playbook. And the other prong is metric development, so we can actually measure and value resiliency. So a lot of times when you're looking at projects, your very basic benefit cost analysis is going to be directly economical. How much is the system going to cost you, and how much are you going to save on your electric bill? But there's so many other benefits you can get out of a microgrid, and here we're specifically talking about solar and storage microgrids, that aren't necessarily caught in that specific benefit cost analysis, but really need to be considered when you're judging whether or not you want to install the system. Particularly if you are a member of a local government and have to justify to your city council why they need to spend all this money.
What are some of those examples of societal benefit?
Yeah. So we're looking mainly at communal and societal benefits to kind of quantify. So examples of that could include, how many people in the area are low income and are affected by these outages? How many of them are in majorly affected age groups, like the elderly or the really young? How many have medical equipment or medicine that require electricity for their life-saving treatments? How many of them live in a food desert and only have one grocery store within a 20-mile radius? And so we're looking, using maps, to kind of figure out where all of these intersect, using census data, information on community emergency centers and schools, so we can kind of overlay and see which areas are the most disproportionately impacted. And then we can come to these communities and their governments and say, okay, using these metrics, this place here would most benefit from a microgrid system, and in return, the people there would benefit from the system, and also you as the government have to worry less about them and can also divert your resources to other issues you may have in an emergency or an outage.
One of the aspects of this project that SEPA and North Carolina are working on right now is how to demonstrate to the utility partners the value of their participation. And one of the ways that I think we are doing that, and it's a work in progress, but one of the ways that we're doing that is showing all of these societal and communal benefits on a map, and essentially showing the utility and their key stakeholders the different layers that can be considered during the distribution system planning process. I mean, distribution system planning has been going on for, the same aspects, traditional, least cost, and I'm not necessarily saying, and I don't think we're saying that is inherently wrong, but there's an opportunity here to just present the data in a different light.
There are more ways to analyze the problem than we have previously considered, and we need to take those analyses into account so we can actually get a better, more holistic understanding of what the solutions we are implementing and what these solutions actually do.
And if I can sort of jump in there too, when I was thinking about my mapping projects, I was thinking about our internal GIS, but with open resources like Desire, one of the things that we do use is the EPA has a great map called EJ Screen for Environmental Justice Screening Tool. And so we actually use that in our transportation electrification program, specifically to target community-based charging. But I think one of the more interesting ones is we use it for a mass transit rebate. So the mass transit has to serve stops that are in low-income neighborhoods based on this EJ Screen mapping tool. This is a piece of data that we did take to the commission and got approval for, because it's known that air quality is typically much worse in low-income neighborhoods because they tend to be close to traffic corridors. And so one of the ways that we sort of used that same philosophy was to say, as like sort of an extra societal benefit, we can help to improve the air quality in low-income neighborhoods if we can electrify mass transit that is always running back and forth in that neighborhood. And so that's another benefit of mapping in these open source tools is, we're not looking for a payback necessarily, but if we can help to electrify that, get some of that, some of those tailpipe emissions out of those neighborhoods, there is a payback there. There's a societal benefit.
Yeah, exactly. That's also something that we've been looking at with our Ready project, because we're specifically focusing on solar plus storage microgrids for the project. But in turn, that means convincing someone that they should spend all this money on a solar storage project instead of a diesel generator.
Right.
And one of the additional communal benefits and societal benefits of not using diesel generator is the improved air emissions.
And if I could add maybe just like a slightly different but like layering perspective on this is social benefits are definitely the outcome that we want to see for resilience planning. But what we definitely try to do at Rhizome, and I refer to it, a lot of what we do is like SimCity for the grid, where, when I was a 7-year-old playing SimCity, one of my favorite features as a destructive kid was the natural disaster button. So you built a city, what happens when you cause a natural disaster? And what we're trying to do effectively is bring line of sight to those extreme weather patterns and what actually happens in terms of social burden and social loss. And that really starts with kind of what is the threat that causes us to need to build up resilience in the first place. And so what we build in as a layering aspect to utility planning that you can show on GIS is effectively what have the weather patterns been in history? What have been the intensities? How maybe have those intensities changed over time of storms, of floods, of wind speeds? And of course, how does that impact the system in terms of power outages and then which communities get affected? But then the topic that we really haven't touched on yet is that climate change is definitely increasing the importance of this conversation. Mm-hmm. And so getting an understanding of how those intensities of those specific events, gridded at a high resolution in a geographic area, are actually changing. Now, we've seen in the latest climate report that the 1 in 10-year storm that we've seen in recent history is likely going to be a 1 in 2-year storm within the next 20 years. And drawing a line between that level of threat analysis all the way down to risk quantification at a high resolution on a utility system and seeing how that risk analysis being built up by social impact, that through line is extremely important. And so we're working on effectively trying to implement that.
Yeah, actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, Mish, because we're kind of doing something similar with the Ready project. So we have a faculty member on staff, and he developed a model to actually simulate the effects of weather on the grid. And he has like the whole grid system mapped out in his model, and then he can implement, what happens if there's a storm here? And you can actually see which circuits it affects, or if there's a storm over here, which circuits it affects. And we're going to be using that model to kind of overlay then. So, okay, we can see, we have all the data we've collected through the GIS mapping of which communities are often most impacted by outages historically. But then with this model, we can theorize which communities will be impacted in the future by future events. Because it's not based on the historical data, it's based on like the conceptual simulations that he does. And it's such an important part of actually making sure that we're solving future problems and not just solving problems that we already had.
We've got a couple more minutes left, and I want to kind of take a step back. We've talked about customer level data and system level data. We've talked about the threats of climate change and natural hazard risk. We've talked about SAIDI. We haven't really said it outright, but SAIDI, SAIFI, and CAIDI in terms of outage risk and reliability statistics on the system. But let's get a little bit more meta and talk about the value of resilience, because I think talking about societal benefit is good. I'm glad we're having that conversation. I think a lot of conversations over the past couple of days have been focused on, okay, yeah, these assets can be grid beneficial and customer beneficial, but the societal, the communal benefits are huge. But the question that I've always had is, well, I agree. And the work that we're doing at SEPA is trying to drive that forward and try to incorporate that into the calculus of the decision making. But where does the valuation come into play? The dollar amount or the kilowatt hour amount. And anybody can, I'll just throw out one thing that I've thought about, and you can react to it or offer your own. But it's so difficult to identify the value of resilience, because I think based on these mapping tools, you can see what communities might be disproportionately impacted by an outage, or you might see on the system which is more prone or vulnerable to an outage. So they might value this over, they might put a dollar amount on it. But do you think that dollar amount is necessary for these investments to be made? Like, do we need a standardized value for resilience to actually make these projects pencil? I don't know.
I can take a quick stab at it, which is, we think a lot about resilience in risk terms, right? And when we're building models, they're usually risk models, and any mitigation that has a benefit to that risk model and that risk profile, you can quantify that in generally value at risk terms that you've reduced. But thinking about like first the definition of resilience, right? Like what is the definition of resilience? Effectively, like there are a bunch of definitions out there, but you can sum it up by saying if you reduce the exposure to a hazard, reduce the impact that a hazard has on a system, or if you reduce the recovery effort from the hazard if like there's an actual failure from a hazard. And so if you break it up into those pieces, you have different solutions that might have a different way of tackling resilience, right? In terms of reducing exposure, right, you can put an overhead line underground. You've all of a sudden removed a whole ton of exposure to hazards. You could reduce the impact by hardening that overhead line instead, right? So if you do have a hurricane level event, maybe it's a higher probability that it stays up. And then lastly is you can recover quickly, right? If part of the system goes down on a circuit and 90% of those homeowners on a circuit have backup power, if you have a microgrid at a facility, well, you've all of a sudden lessened the recovery and response of that hazard. And so you can quantify any of those things by doing a risk assessment on the system, but then getting to the optimization framework of like what mix of investments even makes sense on a circuit by circuit basis. I think that's where like the real exciting stuff around the value of resilience comes into play.
Cool. Alaric, before you go into it, because I know you're jumping, you mentioned earlier about something utilizing like qualitative data to get regulatory backing and support as a regulated IOU. Yep. So from that perspective, how does this play into kind of your day-to-day?
No, absolutely. And I will say, first of all, I'm still a little bit hung up that like SimCity trained the whole next generation of grid planners. So I love that, and I think we need like a Godzilla contingency in our plans maybe, because that was always my favorite. I think, and this is partially a utility perspective, like partially my own. I think the value is different per person, right? I've had conversations with people that say, well, it's okay with me if the power goes out every once in a while. But for some people, those with medical needs or those that really, have to have power all the time and reliable power, the value stack looks different on a per customer basis. So really the question is how do we look at that on a system-wide and apply a dollar amount? I don't necessarily know that a dollar is the right metric, but it's an equal metric that we can try and apply across the board, and then say, okay, here's a unit that we can agree on, and here are the societal benefits for it. As a utility, one of the things that I actually really love about it is there's a service component to it, and we serve all people. It's not, we don't choose our customers, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a very different mindset that it's the rising tide lifts all boats, and so we have to make sure that everyone comes along on that journey, and that if we do go after a resiliency project, that those benefits are either probably not absolutely evenly spread, but that we're able to prioritize projects and increase that resiliency where it's needed, especially now with the focus on equity that we really have across the board, making sure the historically underserved communities are benefiting from those investments as well. So it's a little bit of a different mindset, but I think that's something we would always come to the table with, and it has to be a very balanced and thoughtful approach.
I appreciate what's the greatest good for the greatest amount of people, and that's a very important thing when we're talking about resilience planning. Okay, we'll end with you, Rebecca. I know that in North Carolina there are definitely different communities. You've got Asheville and Charlotte, and those communities are just like the value of resilience might be different from one person to the other. It might be different from one community to the other. How's that coming along?
Yeah.
And then is there anything,
So within the Ready project, we're working with, I think, around 6 to 8 communities right now across the state to kind of give them that technical assistance and test out the metrics in real life. So Asheville, City of Asheville and City of Wilmington are official partners on the grant. But then we also have a bunch of other communities across the state, and they all have different needs. For example, Wilmington is on the coast, all the way in the east, but Asheville is up in the mountains in the west. So they have very different needs when it comes to resiliency. Communities are coming to us and saying, well, we just want, a greater understanding of the overall needs of our system. Others are coming to us, are like, we have this one specific problem on this one specific street that we need you to fix. And so it really depends. And a lot of times, local governments know what their problems are. and it's just a matter of giving them the tools they need to actually solve those problems.
Like GIS mapping.
Like GIS mapping.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PowerUp live stage. I didn't realize that my voice is actually fit for radio, so that is really interesting. This session is presented to you by Wärtsilä Energy Storage and Optimization. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks to our guests today, Alice Jackson from Excel Energy and Giovanni D'Amato from CM Blue Energy. So the session today is going to be on long duration energy storage innovation. And one thing I realized these 2 days that I am not a long duration energy storage battery. I'm fully depleted. My knees are actually giving up and I'm at 30%. So I'm gonna use that 30% with you guys today. I appreciate you coming up here. So I would like to get a couple of minutes from each one of you, introduce yourself, and let us know what you do and what's exciting.
Wonderful. Well, howdy, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Alice Jackson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Systems Strategy and Chief Planning Officer for Excel Energy. Excel Energy is a vertically integrated investor-owned utility, meaning that we have the generation, the transmission, and the distribution opportunities and responsibilities for the customers that we have the pleasure to serve. Our utility operates in the central U.S., so think of us from 8 states that go from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan through Wisconsin, over to Minnesota, North and South Dakota, Colorado, the Panhandle of Texas, and eastern and southeastern New Mexico. Across that environment, we have lots of politics, we have lots of geography, we have lots of different densities and opportunities to work with our customers. In 2018, we were the first utility in the nation to announce a goal of reaching a zero carbon system by 2050. And we're already 50% clean energy across all of our systems.
Nice.
And so lots of work going into this of figuring out what does that puzzle look like. And that's one of the things I love every single day is I get to come into work, and that is the problem, that statement that my team is getting to work on. Is truly what does it look like to get to a zero carbon system? What are the tools? What are the things we haven't solved for yet? And what are we looking for? So it's great to get up every day and work on that problem.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you. Giovanni.
Yes, I am Giovanni D'Amato, and I lead CM Blue Energy's energy storage foray into the U.S. market. We are an energy storage company that is inspired by nature. So what does that mean? Basically, if you think of plants, they take sunlight during the day, store energy and sugar, and use it throughout the night or through the winter season. And our founder was thinking, well, why does energy storage that we produce use metals instead of sugar or carbon-based compounds? So about 14 years ago, we started with the idea of going down this road of how can we make a non-metals based energy storage system. And about 10 years ago, we officially founded the company in Germany. And what we focus on is using organic compounds in our energy storage system, which means carbon-based or organic chemistry, not necessarily Whole Foods organic. The other piece of the puzzle that we have is that we are what we call an organic solid flow battery, which means that we have solids in the energy storage tank. So if you're familiar with flow batteries, some of the challenges that they've had in the past is that their energy density is not as high as the conventional storage out there, which is lithium ion. By putting solids in the tank, we're able to dramatically increase that energy density, reduce costs, and that really flows down to every other aspect as well. Putting all that together, we're safe because we are inherently not flammable. Most flow batteries have an aqueous electrolyte, as we do. So water, inherently not flammable. The other piece is secure. So we can supply locally because we are carbon-based. We use polymers, so anywhere there's infrastructure for polymer production, which is pretty much anywhere in the world, you can produce our batteries from the feedstock all the way to the modules. And then we're also sustainable. So because we have organic or polymer based, we have a strong recyclability component. That infrastructure, all that knowledge is already in place. So we're excited to be here and talk about this project and our CM Blue battery.
All right. Excuse me. So thank you for the introduction. This was really a nice segue to my question, which is basically asking about the Desert Bloom project that you guys have with the Salt River project. Just to give you some heads up on the Power Player Awards, this is a SEPA program where we actually recognize really top innovative projects based on many aspects of the program. One of them would be the innovation side and the replicability, and of course, driving the cost down. And CM Blue Energy with Salt River projects actually won the energy storage prize. And Excel Energy, I think you were on a project where you guys were finalists there. So a quick question to you, Giovanni, if you can give us like a very high-level description on the Desert Bloom project and how you got there and how you created the partnerships that actually led to it.
Sure. So first, Desert Bloom is sited in Salt River Project, or SRP territory, which is part of they serve kind of half of the greater Phoenix area. And they're a municipal utility, vertically integrated, and they're in a unique position where they have a very high solar penetration already, and they have goals to accelerate that even further, fairly quickly into the future. And they're already seeing issues with their peak getting pushed pretty far into the evening, and because it's hot there, their air conditioning load and other loads, they run all the way through to the early morning. So SRP was looking for long duration energy storage. At CM Blue, our core target market is long duration. We'd call that maybe in the 10-hour range, and that's what SRP was looking for. They also wanted to find an energy storage system specifically that wasn't lithium. So that was part of the process. So we proposed our solution with a 5-hour charge capacity, and 10-hour discharge capacity. So we can absorb all that excess solar generation as quickly as possible during the day, and then discharge that throughout the late evening into the early morning. And that was the primary focus of the project, and also paired with an actual solar farm that SRP is going to design and build themselves and own on the site as well.
Interesting. So safety was one of the major aspects of creating this partnerships. That is
Yes.
really interesting. Alice, your project, turning a coal plant into 1 gigawatt hours plant. So that is interesting. I would like to hear about that, please.
No, absolutely. So we've been working ever since we made the announcement to move to a zero carbon system. We've recognized that there are gaps in being able to achieve that outcome with the technologies we have today. And one of those gaps that we have is how do you harness the excess renewables that you might have at one part of the year and use them in another time. For example, wind energy produces more at night than it does during the day, and more during those shoulder months in the spring than it does during the summer. So how can you really transition that energy from different times of the year? The existing battery storage technologies that we have that are 4 hours long or 2 hours long don't necessarily help you with that particular question. So long duration energy storage has a place to play in being able to harness more of the renewable energy that we have on the system at the times that we need it. So how do we match that up? We started working with Form Energy a while back and looking at the models that they had around what could we do with their technology to move that energy need to align it with the energy production. And so through that activity, we were able to identify the opportunity to invest and build these iron air batteries at 2 of our retiring coal plants. So we have one in Colorado and one in Minnesota. These are 1,000 megawatt hour battery storage projects. Once again, 1,000 megawatt hour. And so that's something that hasn't been done yet. And this technology, which uses a reversible resting process to store and release energy, is a unique technology for us to bring to the field that's safe. So once again, to your point about finding materials that you can bring together into these processes to provide for a safe outcome, this was a great opportunity. And so not only did we work with them, though, on figuring out where can we put this and how does it enhance the system to drive cleaner energy and match it up with when our customers need it, but we also looked at, in this first of a kind of this size construction, how do we bring down the cost risk to our customers as well? And the great opportunity we had is we partnered with Form Energy to go before the DOE as well as to look at breakthrough energy. And we received funding in order to bring those costs and those risks down for our customers. So different ways of partnering, of not only looking at the technology side and the science of bringing that energy to when our customers need it, but also how do you do it more affordably as we work with these new technologies, because we're going to need more of them. This
100%.
isn't the last of it.
100%. Yeah, I hear you. Lowering the cost is one of the DOE's goals. For the long duration energy storage, looking at the price and the cost over the course of 10, 15 years. So that is really interesting. While I have you, Alice, from a utility perspective, what are the overall benefits of long duration energy storage? And if you can, shed some light from these projects, how they add to these benefits.
Yeah, so once again, going back to is best how do we match up the energy that's produced from the renewable resources that we have, namely wind and solar are the primary ones, with when our customers need it. So I think that it's a perfect example of your project that you have in Arizona of, okay, how do we match up and drive the outcomes you're looking for when people use energy in the way that they do. So these projects are allowing us to incorporate and integrate more wind energy into the system. So instead of having to curtail that energy, we can now put it into the long duration battery storage technology and then bring that out when we most need it. And that's in a variety of environments, right? It's not just moving it season to season, it's also moving it day to day or when we have major inclement weather. Think of like the polar vortexes that have come through the Colorado jurisdiction from time to time. When you have those, you either don't have the wind or the solar. You don't have the solar for sure because of the cloud cover, but then the wind can blow so strongly that you have to push in the clutch on those wind turbines and you don't get the energy from them. So then it's, well, you can't have electricity being unreliable in some of the coldest weather that your customers are experiencing. So figuring out how to pull that from the battery storage system, particularly the long duration energy storage, is a real benefit. These projects that we're working on right now, they may not sound the largest, but they would sustain roughly 2,000 homes for 4 to 5 days.
Amazing.
So we're really driving the technology to look at what does this look like? How do we have the cost continue to come down in this provision of service? And looking at all the pros and cons of how do you use it on the system.
That is really interesting. Yeah. So, bringing the cost down and creating multiple use cases where you can prove that. And that leads me to Giovanni. If you can provide me, some insight where you are and where CM Blue Energy is going in terms of long duration energy storage and a couple of use cases that you see in the horizon without giving up too much details.
Well, similar to SRP, we're focused on utilities and large commercial and industrial customers, and we're seeing that most utilities are looking at longer and longer duration. So I've been in energy storage for longer than I'd probably like to admit at this point. But back in 2006, all the focus was on 15-minute storage with flywheels and a few new lithium-ion entrants. And in the next couple of years, that was an hour, went to 2 hours. The California market, CalISO, looked at how energy storage could do 4 hours by stopping charge for 2 hours and discharging for 2 hours, and then we moved on to now we're really at 4. We're seeing that predominantly that's what the market is installing today. But utilities that have high penetration of solar already, and those that see themselves getting there relatively quickly, they're going to need solutions much sooner than later, and there aren't that many players out there that are ready, that aren't lithium quite yet, and I think being able to fill that gap of going from 4 hours to 8 hours to 10 hours is really critical, and that's what we're focused on, and we see that as a really important piece of the energy transition challenge, and we think that we can fulfill that through, like I mentioned at the beginning, safety as a major aspect. One of the reasons SRP picked us for the Desert Bloom project. The second one being that our security or sustainability pieces, where we can produce locally and be able to supply that pretty much insatiable demand for energy storage that we see, through the preponderance of the various estimates out there of what we need in 2030, 2035, and beyond. One technology isn't going to be able to fulfill all that need or demand, but we think that we have an excellent solution that's competitive with lithium-ion now on a cost basis or an economic basis, but also has the benefits of being safe, being locally produced, and recyclable.
It's really amazing. A couple of keywords, when you say them, you smile. It looks like this is exactly what excites you about long duration energy storage.
Yes.
So I'd like you to continue talking about long duration energy storage and what excites you about it, in the future. So.
Yeah, I think that the most exciting part is being able to really make that transition from where we are today with still relying on energy from gas, coal, and other non-renewable sources. And to do that, we need more and more long duration energy storage. So we need to be able to, when the sun's not shining, be able to make it all the way through to the morning time and be able to keep running our air conditioners when it's 120 degrees outside in Phoenix, or running our electric heaters or our heat pumps when it's negative 40 in Minnesota. The key to this puzzle, I think, is really energy storage. First, it's going to be kind of just overnight, and of course, with wind and other generation, and as we get closer and closer to 100% carbon-free, it gets exponentially harder, and we need more and more storage and longer duration. And I'm excited to figure out how we can push our technology at CM Blue to the limit, and also be a part of others that are doing it as well.
All right. Alice, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at, solving the gap between now and 2050, you really have to be looking at what we don't have in technology today and the hours that you can't solve for providing that almost 100% reliability to our customers, because there aren't many people out there that will sit there and say voluntarily, these 6 hours of the day I'm okay if I don't have it. So we've got to figure out, how do we close that gap? Zero carbon dispatchable energy is what we have to focus on. Yeah. We've said that from day one. And battery storage plays an important part in bridging the gap between where we are today, but also being used long term. So long duration energy storage helps us with that seasonality, it helps us with the day-to-day, it helps us with the week-to-week, quite frankly. And I think it is applicable in all of the territories that we have, and that's why we are really excited about what we're seeing with these projects, whether it's the one in Arizona that you're working on, or it's the one in Minnesota and Colorado. And that's why we have multiple locations as well that we're trying this in, because we need to see the characteristics of how it operates in these different areas in order to provide that information back to the market, in order to be able to improve the technology. Long duration energy storage has a critical part to play in a clean energy transition, and it's exciting to see that we have some technologies coming forward that are going to truly be at the core of figuring out what this looks like.
That makes total sense. I'm always saying, it's not only on, technology providers or OEMs or battery providers to develop the technology. I think utilities, they have a big role there because, testing and on all of these initial deployments with the pilots, this is where you guys come in. So it's a perfect match, for energy storage. And I'm personally excited about energy storage in general, specifically on long duration energy storage. So I would like to, leave the audience with a last thought, on the next big thing, in general. So again, feel free to think about, whatever you have in mind and define the next big thing for us on long duration energy storage.
Here we go. Okay, I will dive in here.
Yeah.
Do I have to stick with just one?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The more the merrier. So.
We're going to talk about a couple of them. I think one of the next big things that I'm really excited about is how do you increase the symbiotic relationship with customers? Okay. Because it shouldn't just be about how do we produce energy, it should also be about how our customers use energy. So we've set a goal and a target of looking at how do we work towards potentially having 20% of our load be flexible. 24/7, right? And so how do you have that relationship with customers through the systems and the technology? So I think software packages, visibility communications, how do you interact with the customers to truly align how they're using energy with when it can be produced from the zero carbon resources? In addition to that is, what are the other options for zero carbon resources? Things like geothermal. That is becoming, with the the ability to go deeper into under the Earth's surface and access the heat that's naturally occurring there, in combination with things like heat pumps. We have a greater opportunity to bring that forward with our customers to change the way that energy is being consumed and where are we getting its production from. So technologies like that, in addition to the long duration energy storage and others, all have to come to the table in order to help us solve this problem. And the faster that we can get to a point of testing those on the system, figuring out how to bring down the cost, the sooner we're going to be getting to eliminating carbon from the content of the energy that we're producing. So investing in those areas intelligently, continuing to communicate where we still need some assistance, those are the goals that we have in order to be able to drive the clean energy transition.
Amazing. Yeah. Giovanni, same question.
Sure. So, at CM Blue, our goal is to empower the world with unlimited energy storage inspired by nature. So what that comes down to is to do unlimited energy storage is we have to make it economic, we have to make it safe, we have to make it local, we have to make it locally in order to sustain that type of production and manufacturing capacity. So what I'm really excited about is to take our technology, which we think is, and SRP thought was kind of on par economically with lithium ion now in the 5 to 10 hour range. But we want to take that further, and our goal by 2035 is to get our levelized cost of storage down to 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So, that really, I think, is going to be the next big thing, and it will make unlimited energy storage. It'll make it maybe too cheap to meter.
1 cent.
Yes.
That is really an interesting goal.
Yes.
I'm hoping that we can reach that even before the 10-year limit that we are putting for ourselves. Well, I would like to thank you both for joining me today. It's been a really a pleasure having you on board, and I've learned a lot, and I will continue learning. Talking to people like you. So I would like to thank you again for joining us today. I'd like to thank the audience and PowerUp Live and Suncast and our sponsors, Wartsila. Thank you all, and please enjoy the rest of the day, whatever is left out of it. So thank you very much.
Welcome back to the PowerUp Live stage. We are about to round out the day, as we always do, with our PowerUp Live Daily Roundup presented by RSM. My name is Nico Johnson, your co-host for the show. I'm the host of the popular Suncast podcast and the CEO of Suncast Media. I'm joined by Joshua Beck. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Josh Beck, RSM. I am the leader for the renewable energy sector in the family office division, working with a lot of families across the United States who are investing in solar, developing their own lands, tax equity. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's as fun as tax can get.
It's as fun as tax can get.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, RSM should coin that.
Yeah, as fun as tax can get.
Well, each day on the Daily Roundup, we bring you a litany of experts who have been walking the show floor, interacting throughout the show with lots of experts on different elements of how the industry is moving forward. Sadly, today is the second day, which means tomorrow is the last day. Hopefully you've had a chance to walk the show floor. I certainly haven't. If you've seen me, somebody said, I've seen you like 8 times, always running. Yeah, I am. I am back and forth.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
So we have our swag contest. If you have been paying attention, we have a swag contest. If you have brought your swag and left it with our warm staff here at Suncast Media, then you are entered into the contest. If you still want to be in the contest, you have about 15 minutes to bring your swag on down to the PowerUp Live stage. You need to bring your business card for your marketing manager so that we can actually reach out to you. Tomorrow, the winner of the swag contest is going to be featured on the morning show with Lisa Ann Pinkerton.
Nico, I was just back there and I looked at all the swag in that bag.
There's a lot of bling.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
There's a lot of bling.
There might be $500 worth of swag in there.
Easily.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creativity in this industry. There's a lot of crap in this industry too. So we're trying to separate the wheat from the crap, and try to help you guys actually think more critically about your swag. Because actually, the way you present yourself, kind of like they say, how you do anything is how you do everything.
That's right.
Yep. I'm very harsh critic of folks that have terrible swag. So ordinarily we will do like a daily roundup swag recount.
Right.
So we'll do that tomorrow at the end of the day, 12:30. Okay, I have been loving the RE Plus Connect app as well. It has saved my neck this week. If you haven't downloaded it, you really have missed out on an opportunity because you can actually plot. I'm at the Unirac booth and I want to go to the SEG Solar booth or the ANZA booth, and it'll tell you how many feet in meters, what the distance is in meters, and the estimated time.
Yep.
And of course, I just chop that in half because I run.
That's
Josh,
right.
it's day 2 of the show. I'd love for you to give us a sense of the state of the solar union, as it were. You've been walking around talking with economists. You've been talking with energy market experts. So give me a sense of the stats that you're seeing and hearing from the last 12 months and what the buzz is on the show floor.
Yeah, so Graham, if you can help us with that slide.
We're going to see if our multimedia team is able to support us here.
Next slide. There we go. There we go. Great. So I wanted to put up some really key indicators that I've been talking to macroeconomists about within our industry, and this is fascinating. So what I was really interested in finding out is what is the true impact of the Inflation Reduction Act? Is it working, right? Is this creating actually a tipping point of private investment across our ecosystem, right? Are people actually taking advantage of these 45X domestic manufacturing credits or the 48C credits to really move tens of millions of dollars of capital equipment and onshore this into operations? Yesterday, we talked a little bit about this theme of trying to consolidate supply chains, getting closer to customers, shortening routes on inland logistics costs, right? So what we're seeing here is some massive numbers, right? 25.8 billion in private investment. This is not governments. This is not state governments doing things. This is private corporations saying it now makes economic sense for me to move my operations into Texas, into Pennsylvania, into Arizona. We're seeing some really big winners, particularly in some of the Carolina states, in the northeastern states, and obviously Texas has been a massive winner, both on the energy integration side with solar and wind, but then also on the manufacturing side. We're seeing lots of foreign trade zones popping up. We're seeing lots of module manufacturers really onshoring production into those Texas markets. And we're seeing a lot of consolidation in those steel supply chains for the tracking and all the racking systems as well. We've got 2 billion of those assets already operational. And I know that we talked about our friend Jim Wood and the team over at SEG, who just opened up their new module manufacturing operation just south of Houston. That would be 60 million of that $2 billion total as an example of the types of companies that are onshoring here. 16 billion are planning to actually be in production mode within the next 24 months. Or I'm sorry, within the next 12 months. So it's amazing to see 39,000 renewable hardware jobs. Isn't that incredible? Incredible, right? Whenever we put that into context. All of these are above prevailing wage, by the way, right? So then what you see here in the delta, 19.25, that's generally on the steel, the mechanical balance of systems. Think old school steel workers that were working at a foundry or a forge. Those same groups are now migrating in at $19.25 an hour on average. On the upper side, we've got the electrical engineering side, the people working on inverters, on all of the connector side of things. So the electrical side of the manufacturing is making a little bit more on the economic side. And 142,000 jobs added in Q1 through Q3. Tremendous. What a victory. What a victory for the American economy, right? Yeah. Let's give it. I mean, incredible. We love to see. This is good government in action, right? This policy is actually driving a tremendous amount of activity. And now we've got 39 gigawatts of domestic production annually. I mean, if we would have rewound 5 years from now, that was an impossibility, right? No one would say we don't think it'll ever happen again in America. We're never going to have that type of manufacturing sector again. And here we go. It's all online. And I think it's fascinating, Nico, as we get to the bottom here. We've got the U.S. grid investments. So this is a lot of a combination of, these U.S. grid investments are actually private investments as well. Infrastructure, high voltage, last mile transmission, $168 billion. And you can see the breakdown there between transmission and distribution investments. Now, the elephant in the room is still the inverters, right? 51% of the market is still consolidated out of China, right? And we all know that there's some issues around cybersecurity with those inverters. A lot of them are being white labeled, right? And we can see that 46 gigawatts worth of inverters are going to be shipped from China into the United States just between now and the end of the year. This is a massive total. So nothing wrong with the supply chain here, but it's important for us to understand that as we're onshoring part of it, we're actually seeing very little to no movement on the onshoring of inverter manufacturing. It's one of these areas that seems to be the lagging indicator. The solar modules, the silicon, the polysilicon cells and the silicon wafers, and then all of the steel componentry, we're seeing massive investments. Much less so, it's really hard. You got to dig deep to find examples of that on the inverter side. Interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I'm working on all the next segments. You ready to segue to Solar Boy?
I'm ready, man.
Fantastic. If you guys tuned in yesterday, you'll remember that we have our Solar Boy, man on the street, Derek Mast, Solar Boy. If you've seen him with the purple hair, the purple shirt, he's walking around asking questions of everybody in the trade show. And Derek quickly summarized a little bit of the sentiment on the show floor. We're going to listen to it right about now. It doesn't work that way. You know what? In Vegas in 2025, it's going to look like magic.
It is day 2 of the RE Plus show floor, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. The solar industry runs on acronyms and abbreviations, but do the professionals of the industry know what they stand for? Today we're playing a game called Alphabet Soup, where I'm having people guess what the abbreviations and acronyms of the industry stand for, and we'll see who does the best. Do you want to tell me your names? What do you do? Who do you work for?
Todd Mitchell, work for Omnidian, Technical Operations Manager.
I'm Tiffany Talley, work for Omnidian, and I'm a Commercial Field Service Manager.
I'm Micah, and I'm with Solar States. We're Philadelphia's best solar installation and education company.
Well, then you should absolutely ace this game then. All right.
Let's do it, Solar Boy.
I'm Sue Stark, Senior Manager of Training with Iron Ridge.
I'm AJ Bittner. I am the East Coast Director for Iron Ridge.
Chris Berg, Commercial Solutions Manager, and I work for Unirac.
All right, we're going to start off pretty simple. We're going to start off with IRA.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act is correct. Correct.
Everybody knows that's the Irish Republican Army, or the Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act.
Very good job.
The Inflation Reduction Act.
Very nice. You are going to absolutely lose your solar card if you didn't get that.
That's right.
All right, level 2. There we go. See ya.
Go ahead.
Solar Energy Industry Association?
Solar Energy Industry Association.
Industries.
Industries.
The last people got. I'll give you the point.
Solar Energy Industries Association.
Very good. You're the first person that's gotten the plural to industries.
Solar Energy Industry Association.
Oh, industries, plural.
Okay.
This guy. Very close, though.
Do you get any points for being a member of SIA as well? Maybe half
Not
credit?
if you don't know the name. Very particular here.
Very particular. That's good. You got to uphold standards. You know?
Best.
Battery energy storage systems.
Very nice.
I'm the best.
You're the best.
You know, I can't remember this one. Hold on. Energy storage systems.
Oh, shoot. I'm going to fail this one.
Battery energy storage system.
You were so close.
Battery.
You can phone a friend if you want.
Oh, sorry.
That's a battery energy
Storage.
system.
NABCEP. Something we all say quite frequently, but
The National Board of Certified Energy Practitioners.
The North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. It's the worst acronym in the world.
true. But you nailed it.
North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners.
A lot more people are getting that one than I expected.
I happen to be
Nice job.
NABCEP certified.
Yes, she does.
I do too, but I couldn't have told you what it was before making the quiz.
North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners.
Every single person. I swear I had no idea.
You know.
ICA. So you got to guess. It's the rules. You got to at least try.
I see it. Make something up. That's dangerous. International Contractors Association?
That is wrong.
ICA. I don't know
ICA.
that one. Interconnection Association.
International Code Association.
Well, that's pretty good.
I got to guess something. In case... Aardvark.
Interconnection agreement is what I was looking for.
I've never
Very
seen
close.
ICA before. I've
Yeah.
literally never seen
Okay.
ICA as an acronym before. You know.
And maybe it's just me, but you all are at my whim, so I get to decide. PVHCS.
PV Hazard Control System.
Photovoltaic. Man, I'm doing terrible at this.
Well, you started off good.
Well, PV, I would guess, is photovoltaic.
That's what they want you to think.
Oh, hazard control system.
Very good. Yes.
Photovoltaic hazard control system.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was an acronym for that.
I know.
There you go.
It's not
learned
also
something.
not a great acronym.
Not a great acronym, but it is an acronym
It
nonetheless.
is. It is. Last one. SHSI or SHISI.
Now you're really stumping me,
Last question.
man. Solar Hacienda Side Institute. No.
Solar
Health?
This is an obscure one. It is
Did
an
you say
NABCEP
Hacienda?
certification.
Oh, it is. NABCEP has come up with so many certifications. We
Yeah,
only
I
had
know.
PVIP when I was growing up. And now I'm a NABCEP trainer. I should know the acronyms. Sales and Home Studies Institute.
Solar hot.
What did you
Solar
say?
hot.
Solar hot.
That's closer than a lot of guesses
Like,
we've
is
had.
it the-
This is related to NABCEP, actually.
Is it? Certified home...
That's certified does not
Oh,
start with
no,
an S,
it doesn't.
Chris.
That does.
It makes the same. It does make the same sound.
It
though.
does. Solar home system inspector.
Solar hot water certification.
Solar heating system inspector.
Correct.
Solar heating.
Yeah, most popular of their
So-
certifications.
Said tongue firmly in cheek.
And when's my turn now to do mine? Oh, that was our turn. See, I'm sorry. I would have been more involved.
Thank you to everybody who played our game. I had a great time. With that, we're going to go right back to the PowerUp Live stage.
All right. That was, if you were here yesterday, I can definitely say that Solar Boy stepped up his game today. I'm really proud of Derek Mass because we asked him about a week and a half ago if he would do that segment for us. And he literally did all of these interviews and edited them virtually in real time to make it possible to entertain you with these solar quizzes as they are.
That's right.
Working on some segments for 2025, Ron. We're working on it. All right. As typical, we are going to bring up someone that we want you to learn more about their business because their business is expanding the way we think about how what we do in each and every day touches the grid. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Ben Brown, the CEO of Renew Home. Ben, it is, I've been really looking forward to this interview. When I got a chance to chat with your team, I had like light bulbs going off. And
Fantastic.
I'm sure that happens a lot, frankly, when you get in conversations with folks. So Ben comes to Renew Home with 20 years of experience in the energy sector, contributing significant energy-related projects at the UN and with the DOE. Also started and sold his own energy management company. He was instrumental in founding and development of many of Google's consumer energy products. I think you were most recently with Google Home, Google Wi-Fi, and the Nest Wi-Fi product. He is now the CEO of Renew Home, which I will let you tell us more about. But Renew Home has a very special place in the home because of your proximity to and connection with Google Nest. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
If you don't mind, I'm going to just reposition this a little bit.
Give me that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. This sounds so much clearer.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here. So, as you mentioned, Renew Home is the coming together of two great organizations that have worked together for a long time. So, we had the Nest Energy team that had worked on the Nest Learning Thermostat for the last decade. And then we also had the OhmConnect team, who was one of the innovators in the virtual power plant space, being able to work on bringing together devices in the home all the way through transacting in wholesale energy markets in California and New York. And so coming together Renew Home, which was funded by Sidewalk as a spin out from Google, and the coming together of OhmConnect, brings together the largest residential virtual power plant in North America.
Amazing.
Where we have millions of households across the country participating to provide over 3 gigawatts of virtual power plant capacity across the country.
Yeah.
And we feel like this is a moment in time to really talk about why we've been thinking about for a long time, is this a chicken and egg problem? Like when do we get to scale in some of these distributed energy resource programs?
Yeah.
When do we get to scale where in which consumers are part of driving this revolution in terms of decarbonization and grid flexibility? And we're here to say that over the last decade we've been building these programs with 100 plus utilities with a lot of different device partners, and I think we're getting to that moment. We're here.
I think what's remarkable is the leapfrog that Renew Home did to the industry, because the whole solar and storage industry sort of had this concept of VPPs cornered, right? And arguably there are those in the solar and storage industry who lay claim to the largest portfolios of VPPs, and Renew Home is essentially turning that whole concept upside down in terms of what can be controlled as a DER to qualify as a VPP. Can you talk a bit about why it is, how sort of the larger context of the electrified home and why this concept of VPP and grid flexibility is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's important that we look at a full set of technologies, right? So obviously with solar and storage and even EVs coming into the mix over the coming decade in terms of scale, we still have to look at like what most people across the country have in their homes today, right? Over the last 50 years, we have these amazing things that are HVAC systems that are in 80 million plus people's homes. We have hot water heating systems. Those are massive thermal batteries.
Right.
And the ability for devices that are marginal cost to be able to make that controllable, flexible, and drive energy cost savings to customers is something that has generally been untapped, right? Especially at scale. And I think one of the amazing innovations about Nest a decade ago was providing this beautiful enchanted object, this like very desirable device you put on your wall. But then it also was this magical in terms of it helped you save money. It gave you more controllability over comfort. It learned your schedules. And the beauty about where we are today is that as energy prices and energy mixes and more renewables are coming online, the volatility real time of energy prices is also kind of fluctuating. And to be able to empower households to kind of participate in that and be able to provide a resource in aggregate to the grid across millions and millions of households, that by the way, those households that are kind of the early adopters to smart thermostats also tend to be like far more likely to be people that are getting EVs, that are thinking about solar and storage, that are thinking about electrifying heating in their home or electrifying hot water systems. And so for us, recognizing that we've worked with those households for a decade, recognizing we have a lot of other partners in the ecosystem like Honeywell and Rheem and a bunch of folks that we've worked with for a long time, we recognize that we can provide a really meaningful funnel and resource to help kind of grow electrification in the home. So leveraging an existing set of a large resource for customers participating in programs for smart thermostats and HVAC, but being able to provide a lot more than that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. That's so fascinating.
I got you.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that I'm so interested, I read your position paper on virtual power plants, and I got to give your team kudos because, man, as a, I consider myself a data nerd, and man, you guys went deep into the data set in order to pull all that stuff out. So well done on that. I recommend anyone read it if you can find it online. I'm really interested to hear your perspective on, from the perspective of critical load shifting.
Yep.
Where do you see the place of residential VPPs as it pertains to critical load shifts?
Yep. Yeah, so I think what was beautiful about and why we wanted to do the position paper is that you kind of mentioned it before. In the space that we operate in, we're always excited about new technology, like the newest thing that's coming. That's going to be the silver bullet that kind of saves us from kind of the challenges that we have in terms of growing load on the grid and the ability to decarbonize. And the reality is, there's just a massive untapped resource, which is these 80+ million HVAC systems across the country. You already have tens of millions of households starting to adopt smart thermostats. We can grow that even more substantially, and that provides an amazing resource. But what's interesting about the last decade is that we've brought in millions of households into these demand response programs through what we call rush hour rewards. And what we've learned through that is not only can households provide a really meaningful critical resource on those 10 events, hottest days of the year, where they're more traditional notions of where the grid has had trouble in the past, but actually on a continuous basis. So it's not just those peak events that are, again, those 4-hour, 3-hour periods 10 times a year where the grid is built for, but actually more and more when renewables are coming online, where in which we're retiring more traditional fossil-based systems. It is very important to have that as a continuous resource that is there 365 days a year, that can operate in 15-minute increments, can be able to kind of help support solar as it winds down in the day when other resources are popping offline or online. And to me, I think that is the critical piece of this, which is like supply and demand orchestrated together more effectively, and to empower customers as a huge part of that solution, where in which you're using automation, you're using technology to do that, I think is really powerful.
Ben, I wish I had time for a 30-minute interview with you. I could tell you, I could go very deep on this topic. I was curious, in sort of a parting thought, given the pedigree from Google Nest and the Google suite of products, does Renew Home have sort of an inside track on the use of the Nest product as a VPP?
Yeah, so we obviously have a very strong relationship with Google, and we are their platform for energy management moving forward.
Okay, so it's more or less exclusive with the Nest product.
Absolutely, but also in addition to Nest, we decided to make this an independent company because we wanted to be able to ensure that we could grow the partnership landscape.
Beyond the thermostat.
So it's not just Nest, but we have partnerships with Honeywell. We have partnerships with Rheem. We have partnerships with other vendors across a lot of different technologies. Right, so in the EV space and the storage space as well. So we're excited about it. Thank you so much for having us.
Google disrupting once again how energy is made and how electrons are moved. Ben Brown is the CEO of Renew Home. Thank you for coming. I definitely want to get you on Suncast, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us. Fantastic. Hey, likewise. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and as is our tradition, our final panel is a panel of folks. So we're going to bring up
all-stars.
Yeah, we're going to bring up some all-stars, some
heavy hitters,
some legit OGs, and some up-and-comers. I want to first invite someone that I've looked up to for a long time, Ron Resch, to the stage. Ron, come take a seat. Ron Resch probably needs little introduction for most of you. He's the president of Solar Analytics, but he was also the president of SIA for many years. Well known as having lifted us out of the cottage industry. My friend, it's good to see you.
Great to see you.
Welcome to the stage.
Great to see you.
And he was also responsible for the passing of the ITC, essentially, under your leadership. Yeah. I'm going to bring up someone else who has been making waves in the industry, Mr. Joe Ordia. Joe, would you want to come to the stage? If you don't follow Solar Surge, which is up here on the wall, Joe Ordia is one of the true all-stars on the hunt right now for every product out there on the market. He has a YouTube channel that you should follow. I became addicted to it because he does probably the best product comparisons in the industry, and for good reason. Yeah, and for good reason. He is a, it's stuck under the seat. For good reason, he's a trusted voice for homeowners and installers alike. Sorry, it's a little tight. Ron, you might want to come this way a little bit.
Yep, okay.
It's the first time we've had 5 on the stage, I think, at all. And last but certainly not least, recently joining Heat Map News from Axios to cover renewables and launching The Fight, JL Holzman is a senior reporter for Heat Map News. an amazing vocalist and someone who has generally impressed me with her acuity and insight into many segments of the market. JL, how you feeling?
Here. It's really, really good to be here, especially on a 5-person stage. We're all going to be very, very comfortable together.
We're gonna get comfortable.
Jael, thank you so much. I want to start with the first question here. So I would love to know, what has it been like, the move from Axia to heat maps?
Well, so HeatMap is a fossil-free climate and energy news outlet that launched about a year and a half ago by Rob Meyer, formerly of The Atlantic. I myself came to HeatMap earlier this year from Axios after spending my entire career as a reporter in Congress. I started the week that Trump was inaugurated covering climate policy and energy policy. And now that I work for HeatMap, I can tell you, I can look at myself in the mirror, which is really nice. But, you know, candidly, the past couple of weeks, we've been launching a newsletter called The Fight that is aimed at exploring the local conflicts in the energy transition, places where, honestly, news has been hollowed out, where we can investigate and uncover why projects aren't being built. One of the most important problems everyone in this conference has been telling me about the whole week.
Absolutely. It's exciting. If you haven't subscribed to The Fight, I would highly recommend that you do. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to bring JL on, because I'm really impressed at how you are taking the fight to the local community. One of the things, Ron, that SIA really did and during your tenure was take the fight to Congress to really stand up for our industry. You've handed the torch off to Abby. We've now had 50 years as a solar industry association, solar energy industry association. What are you most proud of in the 10 years since you handed off the torch?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, the growth of the industry in both scale and impact, right? You know, which is we went from, when I started in 2004, that year was a record year. We did 52 megawatts across the entire country of photovoltaics. 52 megawatts. And we're going to do what? Close to 50,000 megawatts this year?
That's right.
Unbelievable. We were at about 10,000 employees, and a lot of them were in R&D, and a lot of them kind of like in this whole solar water heating and other segments, but 10,000 employees in 2004. Now we have 263,833. Exactly. And, you know, and so massive growth. And, you know, the numbers you put up before, Josh, showing all the manufacturing is in addition to what we have right now. So I think what I'm most proud of is we created policy that created a stable industry. We worked with Wall Street so that they would invest in solar and that it was a stable investment and it was bankable, right? We worked with the public so they accepted solar, that it was a technology they want to put on their house. One of the very first, I'll get a kick out of this actually, Jill. One of the very first speakers we had at RE+2, it was solar power at that time, was Lamar Alexander. And Lamar Alexander actually was our sponsor in the Senate for the investment tax credit, even though he wasn't on the Senate Finance Committee. So Lamar came and he spoke, and he's like, hey, I've got one bit of advice. And I had no idea what Lamar's going to say. He's in front of whatever we have, 750 people. And he's got one bit of advice. For every engineer you hire 2 industrial designers, because your product is ugly and nobody wants to put it up on their roof because, you know, you're proud of your house and you should have something better looking. And so by getting the customer to accept ultimately solar as something that they want to put on their house, we didn't have to deal with Lamar Alexander and all of his kind of ignorance. And I think that's really, you know, helped transform. I'm also super proud of what we have here, right? 40,000 people here, and this show and what Stephen Miner and Gary and all the rest of his team at RE+ have done have really helped grow the industry as much as anything else that any, you know, group has done over this time. And so getting everybody together to unify and carry the message and network and, you know, ultimately, you know, bring a positive message to the public, critical.
Unbelievable.
When I was volunteering at RE+ 2006 in San Jose, my first year as a volunteer badge scanning, I think there were less than 5,000. So to see 50,000 plus here at 10x growth in under 20-year tenure that I've had in the industry is just tremendous.
It really is. It's super exciting.
That's great. Joe, I've got a question for you. I love your videos. I love the product comparisons. Your reviews of solar and battery technologies, just truly fantastic. I'd love to know, as you're walking around the show, what technologies did you see this week that really like put a light bulb off, or really you're like, oh man, that's something for me to talk about?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I appreciate that. I wouldn't say that there's any one product or technology that I saw this week that knocked my socks off. More what I'm seeing is a trend that solar and batteries are going from being individual stovepipe systems to more of part of an overall smart home energy management system.
where that smart home energy management system might include solar, storage, electric vehicle, how you heat and cool the home, smart home intelligent load management, maybe even a fossil fuel burning generator as part of the combination. And all of those systems being able to work together in an intelligent fashion seamlessly as if they're part of one platform. So that's what I'm seeing.
That's fantastic.
Rowan, I know you are focused more on the IoT and cybersecurity side. Is there anything that stands out to you about how these assets are being managed?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a little dirty secret in the solar industry, and I don't want to necessarily drop the bomb here, but the truth is KWH does a really good job every year coming out with a risk study, and it shows that on average, solar is underperforming by 8% under their P50 levels. 8%. There is no other segment of the energy industry that's even close to that, let alone would ever stand for that. But that's our average. Right? So this underperformance issue is something that, you know, they're aware of, but everybody's focused on building new assets, right? We're in this rush to build more, which is fantastic. But we've got all of these assets we've already capitalized, we've already spent the ITC on, and they're degrading rapidly, and nobody's really paying attention in order to maximize the kilowatt hours out of these existing assets. What I fear, and a big part of what we're doing at Solarlytics, because we have a whole system to address this, but what I fear is that we're going to lose the trust of Wall Street. They're going to say solar's no longer a good investment. You know, we're no longer driven by ESG. We're no longer driven by high returns. Their returns are too low. Or we're going to get a Wall Street Journal article that comes out and says, hey, solar doesn't work at night, now it doesn't work in the day, the dirty little truth about solar. So we as an industry really need to get our act together and not just build new. And new's fantastic, I love it, absolutely, continue to build new, but make sure that we're cleaning up our house and that those systems are performing as well as they possibly can in order to get as many clean kilowatt hours out of these existing assets as possible.
Well, and you hit on something really interesting, Ron, which is trust, right? Bankers need to trust the developers developers need to trust the tax equity, like all of this stuff. Boy, it's really an element of harmony. My question I'd like to follow up with, Ajel, in terms of opposition that you're seeing within the renewable energy market, particularly at the state local levels, like what do you think is creating those headwinds, and what do you think that we as a collective community can do about that?
Well, one of the singular challenges we face as a society today is a lack of trust, generally speaking, in technological innovation. It drives people to want to restrict access to social media. It drives people to not want to put a vaccine in their arm. And it also drives people to not want to put a solar plant on their property. It drives people to be fearful.
Yeah, not in my backyard, right?
Well, beyond that, I mean, the first story that we did for our newsletter, The Fight, that launched last week, was on a project about an hour north of here in the small town of Acton. It's an unincorporated community in LA County where a large battery energy storage site was approved without the community even knowing. And I interviewed people who are involved in the litigation against that project, which did not go anywhere and left them feeling really frustrated. So what did they do? They went to their Republican member of Congress, who now is waging a campaign to tie BESS systems to wildfires and slow down efforts to speed up permitting. That experience taught me that fear is what's driving a lot of this, sometimes founded and sometimes not. I mean, the activists who were against the project told me they'd be fine with an iron flow battery system, for example. They'd be fine with other kinds of technologies. It's very specific, and it requires a lot more focus on community engagement, on community relations. It's something that other industries like mineral extraction, for example, have had a lot more time and experience with, right? Like mining, you spend a lot of time on community engagement. But people are not necessarily accustomed to spending that much on the front end in terms of really waging a campaign to have people understand and buy into the project. So, you know, I think it's honestly on all of us to empathize with one another and try to, as you put it, work in harmony.
Well, yeah, and to expand on that, I think that also to articulate to local government administrators what this means to their tax revenues, what this means to the actual infrastructure that they're trying to create. I find it fascinating that they're like, we just have no idea how the local government's actually going to be able to function with this asset there. It's a massive win for everyone across the board.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Well, I wish we had time, as I said to Ben, to have a much longer conversation with each of you individually. So I'm going to make a collective ask. As we think about sort of this futurist perspective, 12 months from now, we're meeting again in Las Vegas. What do you think we're going to be talking about as we gather a year from now in Las Vegas? Ron, I'm going to put you on the spot first.
I think we're going to be talking about a massive acceleration that needs to occur, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about growth of this industry, and a lot of it's been organic, and a lot of it's been entrepreneurial. But there needs to be a rapid scale up because we're all experiencing much hotter temperatures. We're seeing that those hotter temperatures are now affecting the efficiency of solar arrays throughout the entire country, which is actually an interesting and sad issue behind it. But I think what you're going to have with the new administration is going to be an emphasis on very fast action to address climate change. The IRA is fantastic. The implementation has been great, but we need some urgency in how we're deploying, and we're going to be one of those industries that has to step in a very different way with real leadership, and really being part of the community instead of just building it, selling it, and moving on to the next one.
Well said. Well said.
Joe?
Well, Nico, I think that's a great question. I think when we look back at the year in 2025, we're probably going to be asking ourselves, what were we thinking in terms of the residential solar installer business model? Because I think what the market is telling us this year is that the super high volume, multi-state, working with dozens of independent sales dealers, that model for a solar residential installation contractor doesn't work long term. And I think the more long-term sustainable solar business of the future might look like today's HVAC contractor service business.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves is what is the solar business model supposed to look like at the residential contractor level? Because what we've tried and what was tried to scale, we've seen a number of high-profile failures, which unfortunately gave the industry a black eye and left a number of homeowners abandoned.
Yes.
Homeowners that deserve to have good service on a functioning system, we just need to figure out how to provide that better.
Well
That's
said.
what I think.
I hate to ruin the garden party, but what we'll all be talking about next year is going to depend on the results of the presidential election.
Well said.
I think last night, went in a very clear direction as to kind of the priority for where we're going as a country.
They said that in 2016 too.
That's right.
Different candidate, different time.
I remain optimistic as you do, Ron and Jael. I accept your counterpoint. I think that it's wonderful to have such a breadth of perspective from different viewpoints, each of you really covering a completely different aspect of how this industry is growing. Thank you for taking time to join us on the PowerUp Live stage and be a part of the Daily Roundup.
And thank you for all the work you do.
Absolutely.
Incredibly valuable.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as we round out the day, I wanted to take an opportunity. If you have entered our giveaway, now is the chance for you to be present to win, must be present to win. Let's see, when we do this drawing, it's always fun because sometimes I have to redraw almost inevitably because people can't be present to win. So Nicholas Musi, if you are in the audience, Nicholas Musi.
Where are you at, Nick?
Nicholas Musi from Inter Maypro? No? Nicholas Musi? All right, the cool thing is I use this software that makes it so easy to redraw. Federico Oniguez, also from the same company, Interim Pro.
Wow,
No?
what are the odds there?
Let's see. Not around, Federico? Both of you gone. Okay. Michael from Midas Magnetic Management. Midas Management. Michael? We're going to see if anybody is in the audience here.
Should we just
I'm going to
ask if anyone here in the audience went into the drawing, maybe?
Exactly. Raise your hand if you were in the drawing.
Anyone else?
Who else was in the drawing? Graham was in the drawing. You literally win by default.
Let's see here.
Twin Day.
Wait. We have somebody over here.
Oh,
you guys were in it.
I didn't see their hands.
There, right over here. These guys.
We have three. Okay, so what do you guys do for work? Carpenters Union.
Love it.
The Carpenters
Love
Union.
it.
I love it. And I'm going to donate one to Twin Day Solar because I love you as a nonprofit. So one to the Carpenters Union and one to Twin Day Solar.
Love it.
And now we got Power 52 coming up to give us a wonderful final session today. Josh, it's been fun hosting these daily roundups with you, brother.
Fun. Yeah, you as well.
We are way over time. We're cutting into Power 52's time. We're going to bring him up for our final segment. Let me just grab that title for you.
And thank you all, Solar Warriors. Have a great Wednesday night here.
So the podcast for Power 52 is called Power Moves, the Kissing Booth podcast. We're going to have Cherie come up to stage and introduce your illustrious cast. Thank you for being here for the PowerUp Live stage.
guys. My name is Cherie Brooks. I'm from Power 52 Foundation, and this is the Power Up live stage presented by Wartsella. Hi, guys. Oh, my goodness. So we have been on hiatus over the summer, so I'm a little rusty, but bear with me. Introduce yourselves.
Yes, so I am Marlon Bonner. I am the Community Relations Manager for Power 52.
I am L'Oreal Moore. I am the Operations Manager here at Power 52.
And we have a special guest here on the kissing booth today, and her name is
Annie LePave.
Hi, Annie. Where are you from?
Hi, everyone. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Impact at Pivot Energy.
Okay, so
coming
this,
in from Denver, Colorado.
All right, so this is the first time Annie's ever been on the kissing booth, and so we're a little wild here, just hence kissing booth. So just bear with us. So listen, hey guys, please check out our last episode of the kissing booth on our YouTube channel at Power 52 Official. PJ, tell everyone who Power 52 is and what we do and why they need to be connected.
Yes, so Power 52 is a nonprofit organization, and they own and operate a private career school where we train individuals to start careers in the solar and renewable energy industry. So that could be solar panel installation, system design, permitting, sales, site assessment, so many different other areas. They get credentials and certifications that are recognized in the industry, and then we also have job placement assistance. So we bring in companies to employ our trainees, and many of them get hired and placed with one of those companies. And we also do so much more than that. We are out in the community and educating the community on their role in the green environment, and doing so many other outreach activities and so many other things. There's a multitude of things, but that's the high level of what we do.
That's right. So we are training up tomorrow's workforce. So if you want to get in touch with us and be a partner, support us, because we are a 501c3 nonprofit, please visit us on all social media platforms at Power 52 Official. Now, before we jump into our conversation, did you guys go to last night's block party at Angel Stadium?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, did you enjoy yourself, L'Oreal?
I did. I did a couple line dances, had a little drink, had some good food. So that was good.
And so we really had a good time there. But so let's get into Annie and what she's doing over at Pivot Energy. So Annie directs Pivot Energy's federal policy work and spearheads the company's social impact strategy. She directs community engagement, community investment, and corporate social impact work. Annie has over 20 years of experience managing exceptional teams and driving progress on solar energy and energy justice advocacy campaigns. So we are thrilled to have Annie here. Like I say, Power 52, we operate on the front lines of environmental justice, and it is through our partnerships that we thrive. So we need people like Annie in our lives. So Annie, what inspired you personally? And I don't know if we talked about the topic. Power moves. Doing well while doing good. Okay? So I just wanted to point that out. So Annie, what inspired you personally to get involved in the clean energy sector?
Gosh, so that was a long time ago now. I always wanted to work on environmental studies. I grew up in California, big outdoor family. My dad was a adventure action cinematographer focused on big wave surfing and climbing.
Oh, wow.
So I spent my childhood in the backcountry. And then when I got to college, I learned about the connection with the energy industry and all of the different environmental issues. And basically, when I graduated, I moved to DC and have worked on clean energy policy ever since.
Okay.
So that was in 2002. And then I eventually made it to Vote Solar, which is a solar advocacy organization, in 2008. And that's when I started to focus on solar, which was a wonderful chapter. I was there for 15 years.
Oh, nice.
And around, 2016 or so, I got really interested in energy equity. And started asking the questions of whose work is Vote Solar helping? And had some really wonderful mentors that pushed Vote Solar to focus more on energy equity.
Okay.
And since then, my career has really shifted into still being focused on solar, but really focused specifically on making sure that solar is reaching low-income families, disadvantaged communities, and that we're changing all the institutions we're part of to focus more on energy equity in our
Okay.
work.
So what was that aha moment? Was there an aha moment that you said, you know what? I love that we're doing great things as far as renewable energy in the earth, but is it equitable? Was there an aha moment? If so, tell me a story.
Yeah, there really was. So at the time, my husband was working for a group called the Alliance for Climate Education. And they were really ahead of their time, I think, in terms of embedding energy equity into their work because they had so many young people on their staff. So their mission was to teach high school students about climate change and get them activated. And he was the executive director of this organization. And we'd come home and we'd have discussions at dinner, and he would just be telling me about what the really awesome young people at his organization were pushing him to do, which was really focus on equity in their staff work, in their external presentations. And I was just listening to it and thinking, why aren't we doing this at Vote Solar? And that question of why aren't we doing this at Vote Solar led to a really long, 5 years of changing Vote Solar to work more on energy equity.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that.
So what would you say would be some of the biggest, you find maybe, since you've been working in this field for 20 years, some of the biggest challenges that energy companies might face to balance being profitable and also being equitable, in this sustainable energies sector? So what would you say some of the biggest challenges that they might face?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I think so much of it has to do with, have you slowed down and taken the time to evaluate your development process against, there's so many frameworks out there of how you can embed environmental and social impact into your projects. I actually don't think it's a cost issue. I think it's more of at the leadership level at a lot of companies, is there a drive? Is there a passion for energy equity? Are they waking up and asking themselves, who is this company benefiting? Who are we delivering impact for? And at the top of a lot of companies, the answer is still no. People aren't thinking about that. So I think it's more about getting advocates embedded within these companies and pushing for change internally. One of the things we did at Pivot, which I think was critical for us, is we joined the Clean Energy Buyers Institute. This is a great working consortium of groups that are interested in impact. It's called Beyond the Megawatt Working Group that they host. And we evaluated ourselves against 50 different metrics of social and environmental impact that SEBA put forward and helped us, evaluate ourselves against. And that was so eye-opening for so many people at Pivot, and what it turned into is a 3-year roadmap where we've evaluated the parts that we need to make improvements on, and we're giving ourselves 3 years to really drive towards higher impact, higher focus on energy justice and equity.
Okay, and so how is Pivot Energy making sure that renewable energy actually reaches these marginalized, underserved communities?
So I think there's a multi-part answer to that. We have a new partnership that we just announced with Microsoft.
Congratulations. That's so awesome. That's huge.
It's really exciting. It's our largest impact partnership to date, and I think it's the largest DG impact partnership really in the whole space. And this is kudos to their environmental justice team. They came up with this framework. So with these 500 megawatts, there's 4 distinct ways that we're going to be focusing on serving benefits to disadvantaged communities. One is we're going to be diversifying our contractors and making sure that we're working with local, BIPOC, women-owned, veteran-owned solar contractors to build and construct and provide engineering support on our projects. Number 2, we're going to be doing workforce training and hiring, making sure that we're partnering with workforce training organizations that are trying to reach underrepresented groups and bring them into the industry, make sure they have a career pathway onto jobs. The third way is we're going to be investing in an environmental justice impact fund that Sustain Our Futures, which is an environmental intermediary funder, is going to be in charge of that strategy. And their focus is on creating community level advisory boards to advise on the grant making strategy. So we'll be directing money towards them for them to do their incredible work. And then fourth, we're going to be bringing additional savings into our projects to direct to low-income families. So going above and beyond what's required on state-level community solar policy. So that's one partnership that shows direct benefits. And I think in general with community solar, one of the great things is wherever your project is based, you can focus on finding subscribers in areas where energy burdens are really high. And so community solar to me is a really cool tool to solve energy equity and injustice. Yeah.
So are you going to be engaging with community-based organizations that are already there in the community, or are you going to have your own, team that you send out into these communities? What's your strategy with that? Like creating trust. I know we were in a session yesterday, and they talked about ways to go into communities and create trust.
Yeah, so important. So for the specific Microsoft partnership, the Community Foundation or the Community Impact Fund that we're working with, their whole model is about, going into communities and listening to the trusted nonprofits that are already there doing great work and asking for their advice on the grant making strategy. So it's not trying to create anything new, it's trying to build capacity at the organizations that are already the backbones of these communities. So it's a trust-based philanthropy model that is really cool and beautiful and tested, so I feel very confident about getting the money through SOF out into communities that we'll be doing it in the right way.
Okay, so will Pivot Energy be volunteering in any way?
I hope so.
Because you want to know, what are, I've served on, served as reviewers when organizations are applying for money. And so for me, I hear all the time, and I've seen on several of these applications where they're saying, we're going to partner with this organization or this organization or that organization. However, they don't really talk about what they're doing internally so that even through these partnerships, things feel genuine, because it's going to echo from your organization onto your partnerships. And so, how are you guys going to address that?
Such a good question. And we would love all your advice and all your help. Pivot is based in Denver, and we have folks who work across the country, but I'd say the majority of our staff is in Denver. And one of the things I love about Pivot genuinely is our culture of service and volunteerism. We have a very active staff. I think last year we volunteered thousands and thousands of hours of volunteer service. And it's one of the things that is truly part of our value system at Pivot, which is about kindness. And so I think we'll bring that ethos everywhere we try to go, but of course our main backyard for us is Denver. So we partner with a lot of organizations locally to support different initiatives. And one of the things we just did is we actually built a solar system on a new low-income affordable housing unit called Clara Brown Commons. And all of that was 100% donated labor, donated. Wow. So everyone at Pivot, or a lot of people at Pivot, were involved in that project, just as a volunteer project. And so that's just one example of the type of volunteer projects we do in the community.
Well, that's awesome. And so just, I'm kind of like tugging at you so you can just talk about it. However, I do know because we've had so many people from Pivot volunteer.
At your events. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we have had people from Pivot volunteer because at Power 52, as you know, we definitely do training, but we do a lot of community outreach and just impacting the community, addressing needs and barriers. And so I think that that's what makes us different. You can teach anyone to, train them to, install a solar panel. But if you're not removing barriers and talking to the person, then really it's you're not going to have an effective outcome.
Yeah,
essentially.
I think that's 100% true.
So back to, and not unless you
No,
have a
you
question.
good.
Okay. No, so I do have a question about why do you think some companies don't lean into DEI, wanting to be inclusive and those types of, do you think that it's a financial thing? Or, because here, this is our time for us to have a conversation so that someone, some, company, business owner listening could say, I can do that. I thought that it may cost us, more money or, whatever their reservation may be. But we're here again to talk about doing well while doing good. What do you think that you guys like, even internally, what were some of the things you shared with people that said, oh no, are you sure we can do this? And then, you sparked something in them.
Well, one thing I have been struck by at Pivot, and so, I went through this process at Vote Solar, right? We went through a change management process to embed energy equity into who we are and what we do, and that was also during the racial reckoning period. It was a really intense time, and just being now at Pivot and seeing this process, one thing I really love about Pivot, and kudos to Jackie Murphy, who's our Chief ESG Officer and our Chief Legal Counsel.
Okay.
She really feels strongly that employees and giving employees an opportunity to shape the company is just good business practice. And when you do that, just because of generational shifts, we have so many awesome young people that work at Pivot, and they care about inclusion and diversity in a way that maybe 3 generations above just didn't wrap their heads around. And so it's happening very organically when you give people opportunities to help shape your culture. So at Pivot, we have our ESG committees, and those committees are really empowered to make change. And the Social Impact Committee, they have a really strong, and the Governance Committee have a really strong focus on JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And so we're just getting a lot of organic ideas from those committees, and the leadership is really open to implementing it. So it's just naturally happening.
And I definitely have to agree with you. I know.
I just was about to say representation, it just is a powerful thing, especially in the time that we're in. We have just advocates all over in different types of arenas, just pushing, representation, and it's really what matters. Even for me, when I'm going out into the communities and telling them about what Power 52 does and recruiting them to come and join our program, even of course it might be a male-dominated industry right now, but I have to tell them, oh yeah, we have ladies that come in our program and they're sometimes more successful than the men. So it just makes a difference. Like, for example, just being here at the conference, and it might seem insignificant, but we went through NABSAP and they had a pen of construction workers, and they were just of all shades of colors. Just those different representations. And you don't know what that impact has in somebody else's life or somebody else's perspective. And so us being here at RE Plus and being with so many, just not national communities, but global communities, and seeing the representation of just the world, I think representation means a lot. And diversity, it means a lot.
And even to the point, and it makes me warm my heart a little bit to say that your legal counsel said, hey, kind of let everyone pour into the way that we're shaping the Pivot
company
Energy.
and the culture,
exactly. The company and the culture, because at Power 52, that's how I like to do. And so I don't want to, of course I have the vision, but I don't want, to just say, we're doing it this way, we're doing it that way. I want for everyone to give and feel inclusive and take ownership. And so even down the way that we do that, it trickles down to even our students. And so because we have that and we let them, pour into us, by telling us, what's going on, what's happening, and then that creates a bond. They take ownership when they're in-house. They trust us. Oh my goodness, we could tell you story after story after story of them calling on us when in need. And And so it's just a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just one other thing about the solar industry right now, there really is never been a better time to invest in energy equity strategy because there are so many price signals out there. If that's your only concern, you
Right.
just want to make money and you want to be a successful business, fine. But thanks to the good hard work of so many advocates, there are policies now that are in place through the Inflation Reduction Act and state level policies that are pushing folks towards serving more low-income families and including other energy equity provisions in their project structure. And then you have the corporate actors, and they're pushing for social impact. And so the stars are just aligned.
Right. And I think that's a phenomenal segue because we're running out of time, but I think that's a phenomenal segue if you see us here with our Power Up the Polls. It's just like Annie was saying, it's more than, it starts on the local front. So it's us being able to vote in for our local officials that are going to impact our communities locally, and then on the state level, on the federal level, and joining other organizations to advocate for those same things that we want in our communities. That's why we have on these shows Power Up the Polls, so we want you to make sure that you are registered to vote. So if you are not, please make sure you do all the things necessary to register to vote, because your vote does matter, your vote does count on all levels of the government. So please make sure you are voting, okay?
However you're voting. We're not here to tell you to vote one way or another, but vote for people who are supporting clean and renewable energy.
Right. Right.
Exactly. And also, ways to support. Lori Andrews, you've been quiet over here.
Yeah, that's usually how I go. So we have many ways that you can help support us. Number one, you can always go to our website at power52.org/donate. Of course, you'll see all our swag. We have shirts like these, other things like our wristbands that you can stop by our booth and get that say things like Remain Humble. That always helps. You can just make a monetary donation there as well. Make sure you follow us on social media, every social media platform at Power52 Official. Sign up to volunteer, like we mentioned throughout the episode. We do so much community outreach. And so having you there talking to the community members about you and the things that you're doing helps them feel more comfortable to accept those things. And so by doing that, you help our work as well to make our individuals want to come into the program. So go to our website, check it out, participate, come to our golf tournament. We turn 10 years next year. We have so many big things in store. So subscribe to our website, subscribe to our social media.
And guess what? You too can have a Power 52 model in your city. Contact us if you're interested in finding out how, because we are looking to scale and it is replicable. So we are trying to take this show on the road. So we want to give some thank yous. Thank you, RE Plus, Sia, Suncast Media, Wade Barton, and definitely Leslie Foundry for allowing us to bring the Kissing Booth all the way to LA. It's through our partnerships, again, that we are able to thrive. We cannot do what we do without you. So thank you so much. Hey, thank you, Annie, for coming on.
Thank you.
We look
Thank
forward
you guys
to
for all
working
your
here.
work. It's really beautiful work, and I have long admired Power 52 and continue to admire you now that I know you even better.
Thank you. So, hey, guys, remember, life is short, so remember to forgive quickly, love truly, and kiss the community with your gifts. Until next time, bye.